Welcome back to the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. Happy New Year. It is 2025. It is the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Thank you for being along the journey. We've recorded over 50 episodes, and it's been quite a journey for me. Honestly, launching this podcast, I had started the Business Roundtable podcast in 2023, launched this solo podcast last year. And I've had just an amazing experience here. And I hope you've been enjoying the journey. And we're going to continue the journey here. Appreciate your feedback. Those of you that are subscribed, liked. I launched a YouTube channel so you can watch us on video. If you're listening to this, come check out the YouTube channel under Steward Your Business. Steward Your Business is continuing to grow. We're in our third year here, continuing to be excited about all that I get to bring and the new people that are coming along in the journey. And so um as we go forward, my initiative in creating this podcast was to create value, help you as a leader know that there's somebody that's an advocate. There's somebody else there that is for you, that wants to create a space for you to succeed so that you're not alone. And I want to talk about a topic that has been a challenge for me, one that I've transformed, and it's talking about the area of uh, avoidance and neglect. And we talk about business here on Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast, but also it spills over to other areas of our life that I'm going to get into on the podcast here. Um, and I'm going to tell you a little story here in a moment here about where this came from, or part of this, anyways. Um, in my career several years ago, I had the opportunity to work with an environmental consulting firm called Bargus Environmental Consulting. They're still around. Check them out. And Angela DePoli, the founder of that company, had invited me to come on board. And what I really appreciated was this attention and looking at things in the company that needed attention. It had been neglected. There were some things that needed to be done, that needed to be worked on. And for those of you watching the podcast, I have my UCLA Anderson School of Management hat on. Yes, that was I had an opportunity to go through the Management Development for Entrepreneurs course. And one of the things that we did in that was we developed a business improvement plan. Meaning there's things that need to be addressed, there's things that need to be worked on, and there's a lot of things you can pick from, okay? But the thing is you're being intentional, you're not neglecting it, you're not avoiding it, you're actually leaning and saying, "You know what? This isn't working. This isn't getting to me where I need to be." In the case of our business improvement, we wanted to make it so that the company was truly profitable. It wasn't just pouring money back into the business. We wanted to make it so that it was self-sustaining on its own, that as you as an owner didn't have to keep pouring money back in to keep it afloat. And how many of we have done that? I did that in a previous business, and had to shift my mindset and understanding. And I work with business owners today to do that. Um, but we need to be mindful of areas that, number one, we might be avoiding altogether because we don't even know if we have a problem or not. We're just not even addressing it. But if we can move past avoidance and at least acknowledge there is a problem, we have a battle. We have a chance at confronting that and being that intelligent human leader, making and confronting difficult decisions, building a roadmap for success. It's that you can move forward. Um, so it's moving from being asleep. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but moving from asleep to being awake, starting to move to taking action in the things that really need to be addressed. Sometimes these things are important, but they're not urgent. And we've all been there. I think all of us at some point where we can get sucked into the things, what I call the shallows of life, um, and neglect the deeper, more important. Um, and I want you to think really intently here. Um, the more lasting consequences. Oftentimes, We can numb ourselves, we can sedate ourselves, and we're looking at an initial consequence or result or outcome that helps kind of soothe us in the moment, but doesn't get at the root problem, doesn't go deeper, doesn't what I call kind of address the soul or the root issue. You've only kind of stayed at the surface level. Like I said, staying in the shallows. I did a podcast episode almost a year ago where I was talking about, moving from the shallows to deep. And that's what we want to be able to do, to be able to go between them. You're not going to always be able to go to the deep, but you can certainly stay in the shallows. And what I want, and I don't want you to stay in the shallows where you're neglecting the important areas of life. For example, when we don't look at this and we choose worst case avoidance, but hopefully we can move past avoidance, recognize there's at least an issue so we can make a decision one way or the other. If we don't know anything, if we're avoiding, we don't even know if there's a problem or not. We're just like, I'm not even going to look at it. That's kind of the first level. But I'm peeling back. I'm saying, let's go one level deeper, knowing there is a problem, knowing there is an issue now, and recognizing where are we neglecting, um, areas in our life. Maybe in our business, there's missed opportunities, there's potentially disengaged teams. There's some stunted growth. You're like, I don't know. It's not that bad. We're getting through it, right? How many times for our body do we sacrifice our body? It's not that bad. It doesn't hurt that much. I'm not that. It's not. We neglect, we minimize the things that we really do need to address. It could be strained relationships and emotional distance. How many times, again, I've talked about in the past episodes, you may have passive aggressive tendency where you're not addressing, you're not colliding, you're not having collision in a good way, in a healthy way. You're like, I don't want to go there. I know it's a problem. I know it's an issue. I just don't want to deal with it. How many of you said that? How many of you have been in that place? And this could lead, honestly, from your business to your body to your relationship to whatever your living purpose is. I call it your being, maybe your spiritual connection or disconnection in this place, a diminished sense of fulfillment. Are you living in your core values? For me, those are really important. Peace, of love, of grace, of mercy, of abundance. Am I in that place, or am I neglected some things that are contributing and detracting from that? When we start to pay attention to these things, they're going to be visibly cracks, if you will. You should be able to see some things in your business: disengagement, inefficiencies, communicationness, short, you know, tone. Um, and you're like, okay, there's an issue here. And I don't know how big of an issue it is, or maybe it's gonna go away or it'll fix itself. How many times have you heard a pinging in your car, right? And you're like, will it fix itself? Hoping it will, and no, eventually it breaks down or something goes off, right? Um, what about feelings that are swirling up inside of you? Stress, of guilt, maybe fear of inadequacies, feeling facing of pain and failure. You're like, I don't want to deal with those things. But the reality is, we can go through those and we can deal with them. We can be much healthier because we're not neglecting anymore. We're taking care of ourselves. And self care is so important. Um, how many of us sacrifice our bodies for our business? We don't get the exercise in, right? We don't eat right. I'm guilty of this. I've been guilty of this. I want to make healthier decisions, to be wise in how I do those things. We could set ourselves up for failure if we're not paying attention to these. We choose neglect. Um, and ask yourself, why are you avoiding it? Because I don't think it's getting you what you really want. And when you're in a place like that, it infects, if you will, those around you. And what happens is you're infected, and that can cascade into others. And so, again, the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast and what I do is steward your business is all about helping you be the healthier person, that you're a person that people want to follow. You're a person that people want to emulate. They look to you, not that you're a savior, but they look at you as a person that is becoming and a person worth following. A leader is not a leader unless you have followers, and they have to see that you're somebody worth following, worth emulating. Um, and so this word neglect is super important, and I want you to think about this for a moment. What are the areas that you're neglecting in your life? Is it somewhere in your business? Is it your people? Is it you're looking at your financials? Is it a process? Um, is it a client conversation that you need to have? Um, I want you to look through that because as you push away, and we have plenty of distractions that will just suck us up into the world and feel like we're being productive or busy. It's not really getting us to where we want to be. And I want that's what I help you do through do it yourself program, through our group coaching and conversations and tools to help break through. And it's another totally another way of living. Um, and as we go through this, it can be such a blessing to others. I'm going to give you a story or an example. Whether you're a Christian or not, there's a story where there's a follower of Jesus, Peter in this case, and he says, "You know, I love this leader, I love this person um, in my life, and I'll never turn away. I'll never say a bad word. I'll never, let him down." And almost as soon as Peter says that, and this is in the Gospels, you can look at this in the Bible. Uh, um, there's this place where Peter then denies him because people say, "Oh, don't you follow this gentleman? Don't you follow Jesus? Don't you know this Jesus guy?" And he's like, "No, I don't know who he is. I don't have a part of him." And and Jesus kind of had identified that this was going to actually happen. And what what I'm trying to get at this story is that we do fall away from our leaders, do fall down, and in this case, there was shame, um, and you know the burden that Peter had because he denied Jesus. But there's this place where restoration comes. Now, Peter could have continued to be neglected, but by revisiting the pain, in this case, there's a later part in the Bible where Jesus comes back to Peter and he restores him. And he asks him kind of the same questions and that, will you care for my people? Multiple, he says it three times, just like he denied him three. And what I'm getting at is there's a way to get healing and growth here. We don't have to stay in the neglected, hurt place. We can choose to go toward it, right? Revisit the challenge, revisit whatever that is that you're finding in your business and it's uncomfortable or challenging, but moving toward healing. And I love the idea of being a healing organization. That's important for what I do as organizational health. And if you're struggling with that, that's one thing that I do as a coach in guiding you and facilitating that healing, forgiveness, um, wholeness. We want to do the same thing in how we look at a business improvement plan or BIP for short. We want to look at what are the areas that are being neglected? What stage in the business are we at? What do we need to address? And we want to be able to then create actionable items, steps that we can move toward attention to being intentional and not no longer neglecting those important things. Um, and this consistent and commitment and evaluating is a way of being. It's a lifestyle, and it's a way. It doesn't come natural. I mean, I wish I'd say it would. It's something that's an intentional and something that you continue to come after. We will get off talk. We'll get off topic. We'll draft, and then we have to come back. That's why I come in as a third party. I can help ask key questions. Where are we at? Where do we want to go? How can we do that better? And get us back on track, so that we're not neglecting those areas. I'm like a little bit of a doctor, if you will, or unfortunately, maybe the dentist analogy might be a little painful, but you get checked, right? You're looking for where are the cavities, Where are these issues? Are you neglecting some of the things? You're not getting there. You're not brushing your teeth. You're not flossing correctly. You're missing something out. You've neglected taking care of something. And if we can get at it early on, it's not that big of an issue. It's really not that big of an issue. But if we neglect it for days, weeks, months, years, it can become very difficult um, to address. It doesn't mean it's insurmountable. I don't believe that, but I do believe it's challenging. And without guides, without somebody to come alongside, a good counselor, good feedback, you're going to have a difficult time doing that on your own, in my experience. So, what are we some practical ideas here on the podcast um, that we can do? You know, what can we do to confront neglect and particularly avoidance for sure as well? Well, hopefully can move past avoidance and say, okay, look, we have a problem. We just we just know how to deal with it and we just kind of let it fester. I'm going to lead with business, but we'll talk about some of these other domains that I've mentioned on the podcast here. Look and do a leadership audit. That's one of the things I can do. We can pinpoint gaps. Talk about this in the giant flywheel about production and communication and execution. And we're going to look at these things and see, what's being neglected, what's missing, what's off here, right? Very objectively, and give you some great feedback qualitatively, quantitatively. We can kind of look at both things. Um, and that's something that I bring in and a tool and a resource. And if that's something you need, let's get on a call and talk about that. I cannot solve all your problems here on the podcast. I can certainly point you in the right direction of some of the things you need to consider and be aware of. Um, look at fears or habits that may be driving avoidance. What's coming up for you? This is where I use the warrior stack tool, for example. We're going through and we're breaking down stories. You guys have heard me talk about this in past episodes about getting clearer on what is your story and is that story contributing to your what you really want or not. How do we adjust that? How do we pivot from that? Look at your mission and your vision, and are you living in purposeful action to get there? Because if you're like saying that action isn't really getting me where I want to go, well, let's pivot that. Let's focus and put our energy in the things that are going to really matter. That 10x versus a 2x mindset. You can look at this in the same way with how you take care of your body, right? We're at the beginning of the year 2025. It's very common. Everybody's like getting their resolutions on and whatnot. But look, do a check-in. What's going on? Practice. You might have heard like a whole body scan. Think about where you're at. You don't have to like get into a machine. You can literally just kind of think from your head all the way down to your body. Where am I at? What am I feeling? What's going on? Um, and for those of you that need more, go deeper on that. Um, look at the routines of your life, the habits of your life. What are you neglecting? What are you know, needing to be what needs to be done? What needs to be, started? I kind of use a framework of what needs to be started, what needs to be stopped, and what needs to be sustained. Start, stop, sustain. Look at those three things. Ask yourself those questions. What should I start doing? What should I stop doing? What do I need to sustain doing? And why? What is it? Why is that important to you? You're only going to do things that are important that you feel emotionally connected to. And I want you to think about the consequences, not just the first consequence, but the second, third, the ongoing consequences. The more that we can think of those, the greater will help inform our decisions today and how we're going to show up and address the areas potentially of neglect in our life. We have issues regarding um, our relationships with loved ones, for example, what fears or vulnerability may be coming up. Um, we can be intentional by provide preparing and prioritizing uninterrupted time with our loved ones. Like, you know what? I really do need this time. We need to set this time aside. It's really important, right? Or create a rhythm of reflection, stepping out, meditation, breathing. Those are really important. I was just talking to a colleague today about that. It may be counterintuitive sometimes. But you're like, that's actually opening up a space, a container for me to address areas of neglect in my life. Um, these are just some suggestions, and of course, I can't go super deep here on the podcast. I want to make sure that I get pack a punch for you here and give you some really good actionable items to consider. But remember, we all have the opportunity to address areas of neglect. And we all have them. I want you to be able to recognize, are you starting to drift to the shallows of life? You're just scrolling through your phone, you're flipping on the TV, are you just continuing to work, work, work? You're not creating space. Are you not making, the food that you're eating is not healthy, or you're just kind of like moving between things. But I want you to be really intentional with your life. I talk about living a life with design rather than in default. I appreciate you guys being here on the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. Your support and engagement means so much. Hearing your comments, getting your feedback, leaving your reviews, it means I can reach more people and hopefully empower them. Number one, to know that you're not alone. Know that you have an advocate in myself, David Carr, Steward Your Business. So many great things that are coming with our Five Voices Boot Camp that's launching this week. We've got opportunities through the Business Roundtable podcast. And I'm just so excited to be able to support more and create a greater community for you coming in. And so if you're hearing this and you're like, David, I'm not sure exactly if you could help me, but I would love a discovery call. I'd love to find a little bit more about what's going on with you and the challenges I'm facing as a leader, both in my team, my business, perhaps my family. Let's get on a call and let's talk, and let's just see where we're at and how I might be able to help you. Um, I want you to look and see what areas you're neglecting in life. We all have them, but we don't have to stay there. That's a beautiful thing. We can become a better version of ourselves. We can become transformed from that caterpillar to the butterfly that it breaks out, and let 2025 be that breakout year. You're not going to get another 2025. You're not going to get another opportunity. This is your day. As you're hearing this and you're listening to my voice, just know you have an opportunity. What you do with that, it's up to you. But you have David Carr. You have Steward Your Business here as an advocate for you and wanting to survive and thrive, move through survive, thrive, and live an abundant life. Time that we have here being a blessing to others. Thank you so much again for being a part of this journey. So much more to come in 2025. And looking forward to great conversations with you. Thanks for joining me on the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast as your host, David Carr. Till next time, take good care.